So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to play your host this afternoon. This celebration of the Golden Jubilee of the University of Hyderabad and the Silver Jubilee of the School of Management Studies, we are pleased to present a series of distinguished lectures to mark these significant events. Today, we welcome you all to the lecture 3 of the series. The first lecture was delivered by Professor Bhimrai Maitre, Director, IIM Nagpur, and the second by Sri BVR Mohan Reddy, Founder, Chairman, and Board Member signed. The past, present, and the future of India represent the story of how a slow-growing economy can now become one of the largest economies in the world. While most advanced economies are facing an economic slowdown, chronic shortages, high inflation, and aging populations, the Indian economy is acknowledged to be the fastest growing large economy. India is poised to be the third largest globally by 2030. Besides, India has set up ambitious goals for sustainable future. Sustainability is no longer just an ideal, but necessity for India's progress as a global leader. Today, we have with us Professor Ramgopal to take us through unleashing India's scientific potential, breaking barriers and igniting innovation. Without further ado, let me welcome all the luminaries onto the stage. Now, I call forward Dr. G.V.R.K. Acharyulu, Dean of School of Management Studies, to deliver the welcome address.
Let us celebrate a journey of excellence where the past meets the future, paving the way for strong and sustainable growth. As we reflect on the milestones of our golden years, we envision brighter horizons ahead together. Good afternoon to everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to the distinguished lecture series gathering to commemorate two remarkable milestones: Golden Jubilee of the University of Hyderabad, established in 1974, and the Silver Jubilee of the School of Management Studies, established in 1999. These landmark celebrations embody a legacy of academic excellence, innovation, and social impact. To honor these momentous occasions, the university has organized a series of distinct lectures under the theme Strong and Sustainable India's March to the Third Largest Economy. Today we have privilege to host the third distinguished lecture, which will be delivered by Professor Ramgopal, Group Vice Chancellor, BITS Planning Campuses. On behalf of the School of Management Studies, University of Hyderabad, it is with great honor and heartfelt enthusiasm that I extend a warm and gracious welcome to Professor Ramgopal, a visionary leader and an inspiring luminary whose contributions continue to shape the future of innovation and academia. I also extend warm welcome to our esteemed Vice Chancellor Professor B.J. Rao, who is a dynamic leader and a distinguished leader and scholar whose visionary guidance and unwavering commitment to academic excellence continue to elevate the University of Hyderabad to the new heights of the global recognition of the impact. And I also extend warm welcome to Professor Ghanshyam Krishna, IOE Director, who is instrumental for all the financial support to conduct these distinguished lectures very smoothly. I also extend Professor Aira Lokan Reddy, the dedicated coordinator of the distinguished lecture series, with meticulous planning and driving force behind the success of lecture series. And I also extend Professor Dr. Devesh Nigam, the Registrar of the University of Hyderabad, and other faculty members, students, scholars, staff from the School of Management Studies and other schools. We already have been inspired by earlier lecture series. delivered by Professor Pilani, Director IIM Nagpur, India's vision for a 5 trillion economy on March 5th, 2024. Another lecture delivered by Dr. PVR Mohan Reddy, Founder Chairman, Board Member, Say and Role of Technology in Driving India's Economic Growth and Sustainability on March 26, 2024. This series highlights transformative themes such as the role of startups in entrepreneurship, in driving innovation, quality education for tech-driven economy, and fostering sustainable practice in evolving global landscape. The School of Management Studies, since its inception in 1999, has been a trailblazer in management education with its flagship MBA General and PhD programs. Over the years, SMS has delivered and also diversified with MBA Healthcare and Hospital Management in 2008, addressing the demand for skilled healthcare professionals in the country. MBA Business Analytics in 2017, keeping pace with the digital revolution. And also Executive MBA in 2019, enhancing industry institute collaboration. Guided by a mission to foster excellence, innovation, and impact, SMS has adapted to evolving trends in digital technologies, energy and sustainability, and skills transformation, shaping the future of management education. Let us draw inspiration from today's lecture as we are continuing to equip ourselves for the challenges and opportunities of dynamic and interconnected world. Once again, I extend my warm welcome to all of you being part of the journey. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful address, sir. Our next speaker is someone who needs no introduction, Professor B.J. Rao, Vice Chancellor of University of Hyderabad, who is known for his honors and expertise. I request sir to address the gathering.
Good afternoon to everybody. This is my first formal visit to this auditorium. Auditorium feels very good, comfortable, but a big screen is missing. A large screen is required so that everybody sitting on the hall, in the hall, can actually see the slides very clearly. So that is one important change that is required. Otherwise, the hall is extremely good. This is my real pleasure to invite Professor Ramgopal Rao Garu, a very distinguished person in science and technology area in the country. He has hit high points very, very deeply, and he is contributing enormously to the system in multiple ways. And it is our special pleasure to have him here as a distinguished lecturer in your Silver Jubilee occasion. So you are finishing 25 years, university is finishing 50 years, Golden Jubilee. So I think both these stars have come together, and we have amidst us Professor Ramgopal Rao Garu. The title of today's talk, initially I thought it is Strong Yet Sustainable India's March to the Third Largest Economy. That's the theme. That's a general theme that we all must contribute towards. But a specific title for today's talk is Unleashing India's Scientific Potential, Breaking Barriers. This is a really very befitting title that Ramgopal Rao Garu will highlight us on. It's our special pleasure that Professor Rao is with us. I think in this new campus, this is his first visit, and we are all looking forward to hearing his words of insightful thoughts. I just want to add a couple of thoughts to the theme so that we can move on in a continuum. Unleashing India's scientific potential is a very interesting topic. It is a work in progress. India still hasn't unleashed itself because of two reasons. One, we have not unleashed ourselves in giving quality undergraduate education at scale for the country, number one. And number two, we have not started working together in synergy for the cause of the nation. These are the two gap areas that we are struggling with. If we are able to fill up these two gap areas, unleashing will happen, in my opinion. I want to see what Professor Ramgopal will say in terms of these gap areas. But it's an exciting topic. It's a way forward for all of us. So let us pay attention to what he says and see if we can take the theme forward in our daily activities, which is very important. Thank you very much, and I welcome Professor Ramgopal once again amidst us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine someone who's not just mastered his field, but reshaped it. This afternoon, we are graced with the presence of an individual whose brilliance has not only illuminated their field, but also redefined it. Here we have Professor V. Ramgopal Rao, the brain behind groundbreaking innovations in nanoelectronics. With a career of extensive experience, Professor Rao has earned many honors and awards, transforming challenges into triumphs. Today, I take the privilege of introducing him to you all. Professor V. Ramgopal Rao, who has been the Vice Chancellor of BITS Pilani campuses since 2023, was the Director of IIT Delhi from 2016 to 21 and a Chair Professor for Nanoelectronics at both IIT Bombay and Delhi. Professor is a globally recognized researcher in nanoelectronics with over 500 publications to his name and 50 patents, including 20 granted US patents with 15 licensed for commercialization. Globally, millions of integrated circuits use the shared intellectual property his organization has with the semiconductor industry. Professor Rao has had two successful deep tech startups from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, NanoSniff and SoilSense. He has been elected fellow of multiple prestigious academies and supervised 53 PhD graduates. Professor has received over 40 awards and citations, including 3 honorary doctorates from India and abroad. He has served as chairman of various Government of India committees on education and research. Please join me in welcoming Professor V. Ramgopal Rao to proceed with his lecture.
For inviting me. Very happy to be here. I had given a talk in University of Hyderabad some time ago, and that was a long time ago in the main auditorium. And so I will tell you a little bit more about, what I think India needs to be doing when it comes to some of these, unleashing India's scientific potential. And in fact, I was telling Professor B.J. Rao what he said in 2 sentences actually summarizes my entire talk. So the same thing is what I am going to explain in more ways than one. And laser point Okay, that's good. Okay, now it works. So I think the current status of India is what I will capture in one slide. So India ranks number 1 in terms of number of institutions. We have quite a few institutions if you consider all the colleges and all that. And in terms of our enrolled students, we have over 43 million students in universities today. And so in terms of enrolled students, we are ranked number 2 right now in the world. And in terms of research output, we are ranked 3rd. So we are writing lots of papers, good or bad, it's up to you to decide, but we are writing lots of papers. And we are also, in terms of patents now, we are currently ranked 6th. Again, you can have views whether it is good or bad, but we are ranked 6th right now. Last 5 years, India patent filings wise, we are growing in double digits. We are one of the very few countries, rather the only country which is growing in double digits. So we are climbing all these rankings right now everywhere, thanks to some of the things that we are all doing. But I think a 9th for citations, right? So which is not bad again. But again, when you look at the current trend, even I thought citations you cannot game, but I think people have even figured out a way to even ensure that the citations also grow now. So I am told there are institutions where one person writes papers and 100 people cite them, and then when that other person writes again, the remaining 100 will cite them. So I think people are doing all kinds of things now. So I don't know what we can do about it. In fact, the Sunday Times of India have written an article. Hopefully they will publish it. So this is 9 for citations, right? But all the good things stop there, right? And innovation, we are ranked 39th right now. Innovation is utilizing this knowledge for some useful purpose. Either industry is using that, or you have a startup, or basically translation of knowledge into wealth, right? That is what innovation is defined as, and there we are ranked 39th right now. We were 40th last year, but we again improved there. And but we are not spending money. While everything else which can be measured, we seem to be doing very well. But when it comes to money, we are not growing at all. We are, as a percentage of GDP, we are stuck at that 0.65% for like a decade now. And if at all anything has happened, it has actually gone down in terms of percentage of GDP on R&D kind of a thing. So which is a matter of concern. We are ranked 54th on that, and we are actually spending less money than other BRICS nations, which is a matter of concern. So we are not spending enough money. And academia industry collaboration, 66th in the world. Among those 130 countries they have ranked. There is nothing significant when it comes to academia industry collaborations. And we don't have enough people, right? Scientists, if you look at, we are ranked 81st, 81 for researchers per million population. This number is around 300 per million population. For example, US will have 4,500 scientists per million population, whereas India has about 300 scientists per million population. Our good institutions, are all so tiny. I mean, of course, University of Hyderabad, a few institutions have grown in size, but look at these DST institutions, JNCSR. I am currently chairman of their board, 40 faculty. I mean, they get 100 crores of rupees every year, 40 faculty members, and each faculty member is a gem. I mean, that's such a great institute, the JNCSR, but they are not able to recruit people, not able to recruit because the positions are not getting sanctioned for them. And look at all those DST institutes, the Bose Institute, or SN Bose, JC Bose, any institute you look at, all of them have the same problem. Our good institutions have remained very tiny, whereas the not so good institutions are growing, right? So that is the current challenge right now. I think we need to find a way to grow these good top institutions in the country. And India, of course, we are way behind US and China. China, of course, every 5th paper comes out of China, every 6th paper comes out of US, whereas we are at 5% of the total world publications. But it's not only that our government doesn't want to spend in R&D, even our industry doesn't want to spend on R&D, right? So if you look at the India's R&D investments, at 0.2% of GDP is all what Indian industry is spending. Compare it with the US industry, which spends 2.7% of GDP, South Korea 3.9% of GDP, and even United Kingdom, right, is 2.1% of GDP. Their industries, and no wonder a lot of innovations come out of industries from these countries, whereas Indian industry, nothing much in terms of new products or technologies because they are not investing in science. So that's a big challenge that we have with Indian industry, and everybody has recognized this problem, and even CIA talks about it. But then somebody has to start belling the cat. So that's a challenge right now. So these are some of the issues right now, and because we are not spending enough money, but we are writing so many papers. Obviously, if you look at this metric per dollar spent, which country can write more papers? It's India, right? We can write more papers than anybody. There we are head and shoulders above China and everyone. So that's why Indian postdocs are in great demand, because they can go to any country and write papers. So we have trained them very well in all of that. So that's again where we do pretty well right now. And the Indian education system, I think, is also pretty complex. I don't know why we need so many types of universities, right? I mean, in fact, when I was at IIT Delhi, there was this problem that UAE, the United Arab Emirates, they suddenly started de-recognizing IIT degrees. They asked all the IIT graduates to leave because they said your degrees are not recognized. And then Government of India obviously got worried. And then they said, why are you de-recognizing them? They said, because you don't have NBA accreditation. And IITs never went for NBA accreditation. But somebody told UAE that unless NBA accredited, the degrees cannot be recognized. Now to explain to the UAE, all these Arab sheikhs who came to IIT Delhi, that why IITs don't go for NBA, right, is such a difficult task. Even the ministry could not explain why IITs don't, because we have these institutions created through a special act of parliament, right? And all of that is such a complicated thing. And so our education system is pretty complex. I mean, deemed to be universities, deemed to be university government aided, deemed university government, I don't know what the difference between all of them, but I am in one of these universities now. So this is, of course, in any area you look at, you have India doing very well, right? These are all publication numbers. Of course, India is doing very well in terms of publications. But what are the barriers? I think what worries me the most right now, right? In 900,000 students left India for higher education abroad for the first degree, meaning for a bachelor's degree. 900,000 students left India last year, right, 2023. And Indian households, as per these estimates, will spend $75 billion on foreign education of their children, right? Why are so many of these children going abroad? And that's because, getting admission into any of our good institutions has become so difficult, right? On the other hand, what is the Ministry of Education budget in 2024? 5.73 billion, right? I think if only we spend that money in India in growing our institutions, expanding the good high quality higher educational institutions, at least some of them could have stayed back, right? And but unfortunately our education budgets are all stagnant, and we are all penny wise pound foolish kind of a thing when it comes to investing in education. And so this is a big challenge, and we, as Professor Bichara also mentioned, we have partially done well with our top 1% of institutions, right? But 99% of our other institutions, there is not much to talk about. And as a result, these 1% of institutions, it's so difficult to get admission into them. BITS Pilani, for example, we receive 220,000 applications every year for 3,500 seats. Getting into BITS Pilani is like top 2% of kind of a students. And IITs now, like what 1%, 0.1% kind of a level. So any good institution now, getting admission is so difficult because there are so few institutions which can offer that quality kind of an education. While we have created these great institutions, we have not been able to sustain their quality nor scale them up. All IITs, 23 IITs today, this year will admit about 17,000 students. 23 IITs, 17,000 students. One US university would admit that many students, one large US university. IITs have not scaled, right? IITs have remained so tiny in terms of the number of students they provide education to. They are very selective, which is good, very high quality, which is good, but then it doesn't work that you are providing education to such a narrow fraction of the Indian students, right? And you are not able to scale it up. And the reason for that is lack of financial models, right? There is no financial model to run an IIT. In March, you get to know how much money you will get in April, right? And then you plan your entire finances for that year. You don't even know, if I admit 1,000 more students in IIT Delhi, how would I build more hostels? How would I create more classrooms? Because nobody is going to, reward me because I have admitted more students. So as a result, IITs have remained tiny because there is no financial model. The funding that these institutions receive, is not linked to the number of students on the campus, right? Even University of Hyderabad, I am sure the same problem you have. So you receive a block grant and it's up to you how you use it, right? But it's not linked to the number of students. Just imagine a situation where government said you receive money per student basis, right? And this is the subsidy. Of course, it costs this much of money to educate a student on your campus. You charge this much of fee because we don't want to increase the tuition fee. But the remaining money we provide you as a subsidy, right? And then if that subsidy is linked to the number of students, then if I take 1,000 more students next year to new programs, I get more money. Therefore, you will actually go ahead and admit more students. But in IITs or in any university, public funded university, because there is no money that is linked to the number of students on the campus, or for that matter any parameter on the campus, so there is no motivation for universities to grow. And that is one big challenge. The only 2 times I say IITs have increased intake, I am not sure about University of Hyderabad, is once when Mandal Commission happened, second time when economically weaker section quota happened. Mandal Commission 50% increase, EWS 25% increase. Other than these 2 times, which were essentially mandated by government, there was not a single time when IITs increased intake on their own. Because if you increase intake, like I said, you don't even know where to keep the students on the campus. So we have been able to even create a sustainable model for research, right? Research, the average overheads at IIT Delhi, I did this study. To IIT Delhi, 5 years, how much money we raised from Government of India. That time it was about 1300 crores we raised in 5 years to various grants. What was the average overhead we received? The average overhead we received was 4%. 4% was all the overhead that we received from the ministries as per the research grants. We also looked at how much money IIT spent in managing these projects. Because a faculty member gets a large project, buys an equipment, you have to establish AC room, infrastructure, provide for electricity bill and all of that. And we spend about 11% in managing the projects. So essentially large projects are a burden on the institute because institute spends more money than what it earns when the faculty undertake large projects kind of thing. On the other hand, you go to Stanford, employ a Stanford University professor for your project, university takes 50% overhead. If you give $1 million project to a faculty member, university will take away as overhead $500,000, only the rest of the money will be available for the faculty member, right? And even public funded universities in the US will be anywhere from 30% to 50% of overheads now. Whereas in India, we are stuck at just 5% kind of overhead. So that is again a big challenge unless I have been pleading with DST. Of course, DST, Karandikar is a good friend of mine because we both served in IIT Bombay for 18 years. I'm saying, at least increase that overhead to 20%, right? If DST projects give 20% overhead, then universities will have, some leeway to run these projects effectively. And, so I think, they are looking at some of these, but hopefully in ANRF, when they implement those projects, I think we will get at least 20-25% kind of overheads because that's very essential for us to, sustain research, on our campuses. And then the research and the innovation ecosystems are also disconnected. I told you research is all about generating knowledge. Innovation is all about utilizing this knowledge for public good or utilizing this knowledge to basically generate wealth. Right? Research is generation of knowledge, innovation is generation of wealth. So innovation creates jobs, not the research. Research doesn't create jobs. Research only creates the publications kind of thing. So therefore, somebody has to make use of all this knowledge coming out of these institutions, use it for a good cause and develop new products, new processes, improve on the existing processes. That's how industries will grow, develop new products, employ new people, so the jobs get created. Because research and innovation are disconnected right now, other than CSE, there are no jobs in any other area, right? In many of our institutions, the problem is only CSE students, everybody wants to do CSE because everybody knows that that's the only discipline where they can get high paying jobs. Other places, there are jobs available, but the salaries are low. So students these days don't want to go for those kind of jobs too. So this is again another big challenge we have in many of these sectors. And then bureaucracy has seeped into every aspect of institutional functioning. Literally, bureaucrats are running educational institutions right now. So, in fact, should be happy that you have a vice chancellor who is an academic. I know universities where IAS officers are vice chancellors now. So we have even come down to that level kind of thing. So that's a big problem. And if you look at on the innovation front, right, there are over 100 unicorns in the country. Today, about 117 unicorns in the country, right? But if you look at all these unicorns and see what is common between them, now what is common is basically they are all business model innovations, right? Aggregation model. Somebody has aggregated autos, taxis, and then started Ola kind of a thing. Somebody has aggregated restaurants, started Zomato, Swiggy kind of a thing. So somebody has aggregated trucks, somebody is aggregating dhobis, somebody is aggregating carpenters. These are the types of unicorns that we have in the country today, and there are plenty of them. And others are e-commerce, right? E-commerce is also one big thing. And then the fintech now. Fintech is also taking off. So these are the unicorns right now, but there is none which is actually a deep technology or product based kind of a unicorn. In fact, BITS Pilani has 15 unicorns from its alumni. Swiggy is, for example, a BITSian alumnus, a BITSian company. So there are 15 unicorns and all of that, but all of them, as you can see, is all aggregation based kind of model, business model innovations more than technology innovations. But who will actually develop these deep tech startups, right? The companies which are actually developing products out of deep research, done in those areas. I think that's a role academic institutions need to play at some point in time. And when you look at academic institutions, there are three aspects to that: education, research, and innovation, right? And while we are good in education, good in research, as you can see even from the numbers and all that, our biggest weakness is on the innovation. We don't know how to utilize the knowledge we are generating and then make some useful thing out of that research. That currently the country is struggling, and institutions are also struggling in that process. So having said that, I have just listed out a few projects, a few kind of barriers that exist, which are coming in the way of innovation, what we can do about them. And at the national level, I think a lot of things need to be done. While certain things need to be done at the institutional level too, but at the national level, there are many challenges right now, right? And one of the challenges, before I go to the challenges, the national education policy is a great document. If you actually read NEP, it talks about all the right things. The only issue is the implementation, right? If you can implement it in the right spirit, NEP can be a moral movement for India. What is this moral movement? If you look at India's higher educational institutions, last 10 years, they have all now become good research institutions. A lot of good research is happening right now. But our R&D in academic institutions is primarily driven by what is happening in North America and Europe, right? Whatever happens in those countries, you read those papers and you also do research. That kind of research is how we pick up research problems and conduct research in the country. If you look at US, right, it's not that the US was great in the US institutions were great all the time. It was not the case. In fact, in 1800s, in 19th century, the US universities were following primarily what was happening in England and Germany. If you look at the early Nobel Prizes, they were all going to England and the Germany kind of places. Almost many Nobel laureates now were there from German kind of a thing. And so England and Germany were the two countries which were leading players in the 19th century. US universities were not the leading players at that time. And whatever was happening in England and Germany, just as we follow what is happening in US today, US was following what was happening in England and Germany and were copying, whatever was happening there and do research, based on what happens in these two countries kind of a thing. When did US universities turn into what they are today? It all happened with this act in the US, which is called the Morrill Act of 1862, more commonly known as the land grant university model. What the US basically did was they introduced a bill in the parliament, in the Senate, which said that the universities will be provided support from the governments only if they do such branches of learning as are related to agriculture and the mechanic arts. what they basically said was you need to connect with the society. Right? So what US basically mandated through the land grant university model was you receive all this support from the state and the federal government only if you connect with the society and work in such branches of learning. At that time it were all agriculture and mechanic arts, and so therefore they mandated their universities to work in those areas. And that's the reason why you still see all top universities in the US are all land grant university models, and you still see some universities, Texas A&M. That A&M stands for agriculture and mechanic arts, and so many of these MIT, all of these universities got created through the land grant university kind of a model. And so that is the reason why that connect with society, solving societal problems is what turned the US universities into the centers of excellence that you see them today. So that connect and working on the societal problems was very essential, for the universities to become that. Until that time, the England and Germany were primarily working on classics, theology, natural sciences kind of a thing, whereas in the US universities, started to work on more technologies and by doing more science-based kind of innovations and all of that, happened in the US universities. And India, I think with NEP we have found our moral moment. NEP is a great document, and I think some of our research, needs to be becoming solution to a problem, right? But for that somebody has to give you a problem, and we collectively can develop solutions to those problems. Most of the research that is happening today, I would call it solution looking for a problem. Right? In our academic institutions, all the solutions are there for all the problems. Now only we need to apply them, right? Otherwise, all the world's problems we have solved in our academic institutions today. So I think that is what that needs to happen. So from solutions looking for a problem to solution to a problem, but that is where the society connect becomes very important. And I will also talk about it. And therefore, when you look at the barriers for India to achieve that, the preeminent kind of a status when it comes to our educational institutions. So some of these barriers you need to overcome. The first one is we need to spend more money. I think government not giving enough money for science and technology is not going to work. If we want to become a developed nation, it can only happen through its universities. I think our universities need to be funded more, and good research needs to happen. Percentage of GDP wise, India is here. Which are the countries which spend less money than us? Pakistan, Philippines, Sri Lanka and Venezuela. So that's what is our Indian support for education is. And even out of that 0.65% of money that we are getting, don't assume that all that money is coming to DST and to you, right? Out of that, 1/3 of that 0.65% actually goes for DRDO. That's not a separate budget. The 19% goes for Department of Space, right? What the Department of Science and Technology gets is out of that 0.65%, they get only 7.3%. So there is really not much money for education and research in this country. So this is the big challenge that we have right now. And the other thing is the patent culture, right? We are filing enough patents now. That has definitely improved. Of course, I will also show you what else we can do in terms of patents. But 2019, when I looked at this data, right, India in nanotechnology, we wrote about 15,000 papers in 2019, and our global rank in terms of publications was third in nanotechnology. We are still third. But how many patents we filed out of 15,000 papers? 54, right? In the same year, US wrote 24,000 papers, ranked second. Look at the number of patents US filed, 4,666. Every 5 papers in the US, they file a patent. They are always looking at protecting the IP before they publish. In India, I think because we are on that publish or perish kind of a rat race, we tend to write more papers and we don't protect our IP enough. So this is one challenge that existed in this, but now we are filing more patents. But I'll tell you a little bit more about it. The third issue is, India, the education, research and innovation ecosystems are decoupled. Right? Our research doesn't feed to education. Our innovation neither feeds to education nor research. These are all independent kind of blocks right now. Whereas when you talk about a great research institution, the research, currently it all is linked to library. Right? Our problems originate in library and end up in library. Right? They don't have to go anywhere else. And we pick up problems from literature review, and we publish papers. So that's how our research ecosystem is developed. But ideally, the research should connect with industry, with societal problems, with the line ministries giving problems, with strategic agencies like DRDOs, ISROs connecting with us strongly, in addition to, of course, the blue sky research that you might do. So I think that kind of an ecosystem is what is important. So what is desirable in my opinion is this close linkage between education, research and innovation, each feeding unto itself, right? So that connect is something that we need to establish in these institutions now. So that's something that is again very important for us to develop new technologies and all that. This is again something I recently wrote an article on why the India's Nobel Prize drought, right? I mean, we got Nobel Prize some 93 years ago, C.V. Raman's Nobel Prize. And if you look at India, is there any researcher who is tipped to get a Nobel Prize today? At least I do not know. So therefore, that is a challenge, right? Unless you have 500 people knocking on the Nobel doors, right, every year, you won't get a Nobel Prize. And for us to reach that situation, we at least need to start now. We need to build that capacity in every area. If you look at any of these great technology, right, this is one of the most advanced things that we are all using on a daily basis, the mobile phones, right? Now behind this mobile phone, there are at least a dozen Nobel Prizes, right? Every aspect of the mobile phone actually got a Nobel Prize. The display, the camera, wireless technology, battery, memory, processor, polymers, transistor, everything has got a Nobel Prize, right? I think out of all the great science have come the great innovations. And if you do not fund science, if our top talent is not going for science, you will never be able to develop any great technology. So therefore, the science is what we need to strengthen. Technology will happen. And unfortunately, the funding now, even whatever little funding we are getting from these agencies, everybody wants a product. Everybody wants a prototype. I mean, you can develop products and prototypes, out of every funding that you receive. The simple blue sky, simple great scientific kind of research, that is now struggling when it comes to getting funding and all of that. I think, that is what is important. So engineers are the creators, but they stand on the shoulders of scientists. I think without that great science, there can never be great technology. So our top talent not doing this deep science, right? They don't, somebody could have become a great mathematician, somebody could have become a great chemist, great physicist, but they all end up becoming lousy engineers, right? That is what currently is the situation right now. So even if you are, good in some science, we don't pursue that, and everybody wants to become computer scientists and then get some job eventually. And that's one big problem. There were good programs like KVPY, what was that? That was a very nice program to spot talent very early in sciences and nurture the talent by providing scholarship. All those programs have closed down. I don't know who advised the government to close down KVPY. We should have actually scaled it up 10x, because that was at least one program which was spotting the talent in children in sciences and nurturing that. But somehow for that reason, we also have lost that aspect of it. Another problem is a lot of university research where we are focusing on applied research ends up with technology readiness level 4, 3 or 4, the proof of concept level, right? But the industries want it at a much higher level, 8 or 9 kind of a level. But who will take a TRL 3 or 4 prototype into a 8 or 9 product, right? We don't have any systemic kind of institutions which actually do that. As a result, this is the valley of death. Lot of projects end up at this level. They never see the light of the day because there are no institutional mechanisms to take these prototypes into products. If you ask me, CSIR should have been doing that. CSIR should have been connected with all these academic institutions rather than competing with us, academic institutions. They should have been collaborating with academic institutions, take these technologies out of these researchers, turn them into prototypes at higher TRL values, and then commercialize them through startups and into industries. But CSIR, is also competing with us for the same grants now and for everything, right? So I think that there is no other institution in the country which is actually fulfilling this kind of a mandate. So which is another problem that we have in India right now. So there is a need to bridge institutions. We need institutions which can bridge this gap between academia and industry. and for POC, prototyping and all of that. I think that is again becoming a bit of a challenge right now. And I have been writing papers, I have been working with ministries to create what I call India labs, or whatever labs you want to create. They should not be doing any basic research. They should work with academia, take out technologies at a certain TRL, work on them, invest money, put people, develop that expertise, and then come out with products out of whatever is happening in academia. So you call them India labs or Tata labs or Birla labs, I don't mind, but I think we need to create those kind of mechanisms right now. At least some CSIR labs hopefully will also do that. Out of these efforts now, at least MIT is creating one India sensor hub. There is an India sensor hub coming up in Bangalore. What this hub will basically do is take all the high TRL projects from academia and develop them into products and prototypes kind of a thing. So at least one census area we are trying to address this at the national level. And the education model is also very fragmented, right? And innovation requires a multidisciplinary approach. Problems don't come with a disciplinary track. And but most of the Indian institutions are highly discipline oriented. We need to become more multidisciplinary in our educational offerings. And then there are also, for example, this is another problem. So I call them the 5Gs in India, right? So I don't have to explain it. The GFR is one, GST is one, GEM is third, GTE. What is GTE? Global Tender Inquiry, and fifth is the governance, right? So 5G problem now we are stuck with. Whether our real 5G is working or not on the phone, this 5G is working extraordinary efficiency right now. So this is one big challenge that we have in the country. And even in IIT Delhi, it is taking 11 months to place an order for an equipment. 11 months, because every file goes to Ministry for Secretary's signature that you can import the equipment kind of a thing. So this is what we have created, thanks to our bureaucrats. And the sources of income, this is also, I recently looked at how universities manage their resources, meaning where do universities get their money from, right? I looked at universities in Asia, universities in US, right? In the US, private and public, right? And Indian universities, including one private university. Where does our money come from? If you look at IISc, 67% of IISc money comes as a grant by the government of India, right? And their tuition fee is only 1%. They don't, IISc doesn't, all postgraduate students, very few undergrads, hardly any tuition fee component they have. 21% of money comes from sponsored research projects, and that too from DST, DBT and these agencies. So this is also in a way from government of India, right? And then 7% is what they have as as you can see here, endowments and returns. So they raise some investments from the alumni and all that. These are the kind of rest of the money sources. So typically about 90% of money comes from some government source or the other, right? Whereas if you look at BITS Pilani, a private institution, the same money that comes from government basically comes from the tuition fee, right? So that's a major source of income, as you can see, revenue from tuition fee. So 90% of money comes from the tuition fee. Look at an American university, right? So look at America's Stanford University. It's a private university, but its tuition fee component to revenue is only 13%, meaning they are not charging students to make money, right? So that's a great thing about these places, because they have 26% of their revenue comes from endowment funds, 26% of education, and 34% comes from sponsored research income, which is the overheads on the research projects that their faculty do, right? So therefore, this is the kind of a distribution they have, and 15% comes from other donations available for spend and other things, and 11% comes from other income, which is, they have a strong medical school also that also contributes money to the Stanford school. So this is a very diversified financial model, whereas our Indian universities, it's one single color, right? All government funding kind of a thing. So this is, even if you look at the US public universities, Purdue or UC Berkeley, the government subsidy is only 27%, right? Rest of the money, 23% comes from tuition fee, 18% comes from the endowment funds, 13% comes from endowment, 18% comes from the research overheads and other things. So this is what it is. So there is a government component here, government revenue from tuition fee, sponsored research overheads, and then endowment funds, and 9% from donations and other kind of things. So I think we need to create that diversified kind of a model. So that's very critical for our institutions to grow right now. So this is something, and the making research sustainable. I actually told you that we are filing a lot of patents, which is a good thing. Ranked 6th globally in patent filings, right? And but what do these patents do? In fact, I recently looked at, very often you go to government, the one thing they tell you is, oh, but you should earn money from patent licensing, right? You should you should do technology transfers and earn money by technology transfers. Which university in the world do you think will do maximum technology transfers in the center of industry? Stanford, right? Stanford is a hub for industry. How much money did Stanford earn last year from technology transfers and patent licensing? 0.66% of their total funding came from technology licensing. Just 0.66%. It's not that Stanford is making tons of money out of technology licensing or patent licensing. Patents don't really get you any money. Patents, you actually spend more money. Only people who make money out of patents are the lawyers, right? Nobody else makes money out of patents, right? But why do you need to patent then? Patents are very essential because, if you want to catalyze startups, you want to do any deep tech startups, without the startup having a patent, you will never be able to even start a company. Nobody will fund you if your startup doesn't have the IP, that you are talking about for your startup. So if you ever want to build a deep tech ecosystem for startups, you have to file patents, and that's the only way you can safeguard yourself from the legal and other kind of somebody coming from suing you. The reason you need the patent is, for a startup, is nobody else will sue you. Not that you will go and sue somebody, but if you have that patent, nobody will sue you, which is very important for a startup. So therefore, patents are required if you want to build the deep tech startup ecosystem. What else you need where is the real value for patenting lies? And so the real, for example, if you look at Stanford, the startups that came out of Stanford, the companies, now their market valuation is like $3 trillion US. Right, that's what one university in the US is able to create out of the startups that it has been able to incubate and all of that. And that is what is the real value for the patent. So the startups based on patents drive the economy, and that's the reason why you need to file patents, because once you file patents, your faculty can start companies and make some revenues out of that. So that's one thing which is very important. Another reason is academia industry collaborations are the key, right? And if you have patents, if those patents are jointly done with industry, I can tell you the likelihood of their commercialization is very, very high. Out of my 50 patents, at least 2 dozen of my patents are with industries. That is what, as you saw in my introduction, at least a few hundreds of millions of chips have used that IP, right, which was with industry. I only received some royalty out of that, but otherwise, it saw the light of the day because of that industry to which the patent was filed. So I think if you are filing patents, you file patents to incubate startups, right, create that ecosystem, or you work closely with industry so that you can file more and more patents together. Otherwise, filing patents and expecting that we will become rich, even in Stanford, not many have become rich by doing that. So I think that once in a while it may happen. It's not that it will never happen, but this is the real data that exists in Stanford and MIT, in terms of IP licensing and patenting. And at the institution level too, we need to do a lot of things. When I was the director at IIT Delhi, we conceptualized what I call the idea factory approach, right? What is idea factory approach? My idea was, just bring unlike minds together, create the right atmosphere, but structure the interactions, right? So that's what we basically did. What are these unlike minds? Bring people with different cultural backgrounds. During my time at IIT Delhi, we started multiple joint degree programs, so that we can have, a diversity on the campus in terms of international scholars collaborating with us. We also started multiple schools on the campus with different disciplinary kind of training. At least during my time at IIT Delhi, at least 10 new academic units came into existence, and which all had a multidisciplinary kind of a focus. And we also started collaborating with institutions in Delhi. Delhi has so many good quality institutions. So we signed MOUs with all of these institutions, And we had a very simple concept there. We called it multi-institutional faculty interdisciplinary research program. We said if you collaborate with our faculty, right, we fund our faculty, right, 5 lakh rupees per year for 2 years, and their director will fund their faculty. So therefore, the faculty will receive money from their respective universities, 5 lakh rupees per year for 2 years, right? And then they will work with each other, take some staff or take a student and start working on that. But the condition is after 2 years of receiving the institute grant, you have to go ahead and submit a project to an external agency. Meaning 2 years you will receive the support, but after that you have to get money from outside agency. We funded at IIT Delhi about 10 crores we spent on FIRP and MFIRP, faculty interdisciplinary research projects. The 10 crores after about 3 years of time when we looked at resulted in something like 130 crores of funding from outside agencies. Because now that people are coming out of their comfort zone, collaborating with each other, now they all, because of that condition we put, after 2 years you have to write a proposal outside agency. So we received 130 crores of money, out of the 10 crores of investment. So I think that connect is important. For people to collaborate with each other, we need to incentivize. So that is within the institute we called it FIRP. Outside we called it MFIRP. Even in University of Hyderabad, I was on your IOE committee. I remember we did suggest something like that and all of that. So I think that is something which really made a big difference. Other unlike mine, these are different attitudes. People collaborating with industry. During my time, we did a lot of things with industry. We created a dean of corporate relations, and whose job was to connect and then had staff in the dean of corporate relations. They were all working with industry closely. And then once you do that, then create an ecosystem for high-tech startups. And we funded a lot of startups, internally through grants. And then we also, created a PhD incubator and all of that. So many things we did, and that resulted in about 5 years of time at IIT Delhi. We saw a 4x increase in research grants and also startups. And we saw a 3x increase in funded research projects. We filed more patents in that 5 years than the previous 55 years. We started 10 plus academic units. Even in terms of industry, we were collaborating with 275 plus companies as against 50 plus companies 5 years ago. I think that incentivizing faculty to come out of their comfort zone, collaborate with other researchers from different disciplines or interact with outside institutions, I think that made wonders for us in IIT Delhi. And I think this is what we if we can incentivize faculty, a lot of things can get done. And during the COVID time, right, IIT Delhi developed all of these products. What we basically said was, at IIT Delhi, if you work on a COVID problem during the COVID time, your labs will be open and you can receive some internal grant from institute. So people took the institute money, we opened the labs, they started working with their faculty, and within the 2 years of time, they were able to develop a low-cost RT-PCR kit and a rapid antigen kit and multiple masks, with all properly scientifically tested, and a lot of good research happened on COVID. The only difference is, during COVID, this 700 faculty working on one single problem, COVID. Right? When you focus their energies, all of this happened in just a 2 years time frame. So that the talent is there in the faculty. These are all great people with the greatest minds on our universities. But the problem is they need to be focused. Their energies need to be focused towards solving a problem. The problem needs to be properly defined. So once you did that, you could see the impact out of the same institution, which everybody complains, you have not done this, you have not done that kind of thing. But once COVID over, the same 700 faculty started working on their 1500 problems, and then finally it's back to square one. So I think it should not be one COVID bringing us together, right? It should also be some top-down approach. I was talking to DST. I said, let's start some grand challenges, right? Let's pose grand challenges to the faculty, saying that, but very well-defined grand challenge, right? Grand challenge is, if you are working on solar cell, I want to increase efficiency by 5% from whatever it is currently, right? That's a grand challenge. And I think once you pose those focused problems, I can tell you the academia can deliver. And but if you don't tell them the problem, then they imagine their own problem and they spend their lifetime working on that problem, right? That is what is currently the situation. I think the top down, a little bit of leadership is needed for academia to bring all this talent together. And this is a good example at IIT Delhi. In 2 years, what all an institute could do, this was a clear example of that. At the individual level too, I think as faculty we also need to do things differently, right? I will tell you, at least I will not take much time. How much time I have? Maybe 10 minutes more is okay. Yeah. So at least in my case, I have been working on. I am an engineer, so you can give it to me. So I worked with industries. I worked on societal problems. I have always been active in that, and I will. One of the things I, for example, starting from 2005 onwards. Before I came back to India in 98 to 2005, I did nothing. I only wrote papers, as many papers as I could, and I got Swarna Jayanti, Bhatnagar, and all the awards and everything. Right. So once I received all the awards, I told myself, now that this is over, so let me do something and everything. So then, so that is what triggered me to look at, what are the societal problems? Can I develop solutions to these societal problems? And that was what my approach was. And then, I started to. Once I started to connect with external stakeholders, I got interested in agriculture, I got interested in healthcare, right? I got interested in multiple things, because if you are looking for a problem in India, there are enough problems. I always say that India has all the problems of the world, right? If you are looking for a problem, you don't have to go to American Journal and search for a problem. You just look around you find problems, and each of these problems you can spend your lifetime. These problems are so complex that you can spend your lifetime solving them, right? So therefore, I started to look at everything looked like doable, everything looked like an interesting problem, and then I started to work on my very first project in that mode was a low-cost cardiac diagnostic system, because around that time, some doctor told me that every third death in India occurs because of a cardiac problem, heart attack. And they said the heart attacks happen because of our eating habits, sedentary lifestyles, and all of that. But they said, how do you detect cardiac problems? You detect cardiac problems by looking for some of these markers in the blood, these proteins in the blood, like troponin, CKMB, myoglobin, kind of a thing. So that was my first foray into developing a system, complete system-oriented kind of an approach. So some of us, very young at IIT Bombay, I was associate professor in 2004. So we started to formulate a problem. We said, you take the blood sample from a patient, you filter it out, put microfluidic channels, build these sensors for different cardiac proteins like troponin, myoglobin, CKMB, kind of a thing. This entire thing disposable, and then a tabletop system. So then 6 different departments at IIT Bombay came together to do this project. That was the first multidisciplinary project in the history of IIT Bombay. And then we were all, from 6 departments coming together. It was funded by a program called NPSM, National Program on Smart Materials. And then we received about 3 crores of funding at that time and started working together. And so we started working on technologies. In my group, I started working on these cantilevers. And then these are all piezo-resistive cantilevers, where you put antibodies you coat on the cantilever. When these antibodies bind to the corresponding protein, the reaction is what we detect electrically, because these are piezo-resistive. The stress, because of the biological reaction, causes a strain. The strain is now translated into electrical signal, because these are all piezo-resistive. So we started to develop that platform. We did a lot of science. I won't get you into that, but these are all published work. So we wrote at least 100 papers on the cantilevers, and then we filed multiple patents. I hold at least a dozen patents on the cantilevers, and then we after all that research, multiple PhD students graduating, so we were able to put all of that together in the form of a prototype. So this was the very first prototype developed under the iSense project, Infox sensor project from NPSM, NPMAS, and we made a complete prototype. We started a company, NanoSniff. We started in 2011. So we started the company, transferred the technology to NanoSniff, and we said, now you take it forward and all of that. So that after the success of this, which was working well in the laboratory, and then once we were able to show this, demonstrate it to agencies, people got excited. They thought we can develop more products, more technologies, and then the security office, the PSA office, connected us with the security agency, and they wanted us to develop an explosive detector system, meaning because they were all using the sniffer dogs everywhere, and they wanted an electronic system which can replace a sniffer dog. That was a project. So we started to look at the explosive detection. We used the same platform, right? The same cantilever platform, but instead of antibodies here, we started to work with chemists. So we collaborated with a lot of chemists in the country. With the help of chemists, we started developing molecules which can selectively bind to vapors of explosive. The whole challenge is to do selective molecular recognition on the surface of a cantilever. Once the binding happens, rest of it we could do, because these are all piezoresistive cantilevers and all of that. So that was a project, and then a lot of chemists came forward, developed these molecules for us. We coated them and we tested them. We also started developing arrays of cantilevers and then coat it with different molecules and do an electronic nose kind of a thing, and then it takes in the air, and this X-sniff platform, you can do the sniffing, right? Basically you are for every smell, because you have an array of cantilevers with different coatings, you generate a pattern, right? So smell we are converting it to a digital pattern, and then you store it, and every time that pattern occurs, you know what is there in the ambient. So we developed this, we transferred it to security agencies. So we did a lot of interesting things, and but this was not successful enough because it was not selective enough. There were at least 25% false positives in this technology. So security agencies said, you know, it's sir, shoe polish का भी आपका sensor beep देता है, नहीं काम करेगा. So that's what happened, because shoe polish, explosive, there is a lot of things in common. These are all carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. Whether it's shoe polish or explosive, you know, you have similar kind of things, and there were those false positives. But to our, surprise, one day when we were all discussing how to solve this selectivity problem, until that time we were working mostly with chemists. And chemists said we can solve your problem. Everybody was very happy, and you know, they took money, they synthesized molecules, tested, we wrote papers. That we did with chemistry. Always, you know, as the joke goes, the paper is ready, where is the data kind of thing. So right, so that we wrote all the papers, you know, all of that was there. And but you know, it was not working outside the laboratory. In lab, all controlled conditions, everything was fine. So then we said, you know, chemistry will not work for us. We should go for physics, right? What is a physics-based approach? So we thought of because physics never fails. You know, the Newton's laws will work whether you are here or on any other planet. So then we said, you know, why don't we? What is a physics approach? A physics approach is you take explosives, you collect those vapors either through the vapor or from a swipe. Because if somebody has handled explosives, the idea is some particles will be stuck to the body, and then you explode them, right? When explosives, these are high energy materials, when they explode, they cause exothermic reactions, release energy, right? And you put a tiny temperature sensor to measure the thermal signature, right? You explode materials to detect them. Everybody laughed, and how can you explode something to detect it? It doesn't work like that, right? But you are exploding only a few nanograms of material. And so if I have somebody is carrying explosive, you collect 10 nanograms, right, which doesn't cause any harm. And that if you can collect either from the vapor or from swipe, you explode 10 nanograms. The energy release, which is so tiny, right, if you can measure the temperature because of that, you are in the game, and it will never fail. I mean, only explosives explode, so it doesn't matter it's a mixture or homemade explosive, kitchen made explosive, nothing matters. So as long as it explodes, it has a thermal signature, and you capture the thermal signature, and you are in the game. That was our idea. But how do you do that? So for that, we started to actually develop micro heaters. So we started to develop these micro heaters where room temperature to 400 degrees centigrade in a matter of milliseconds, right? In a matter of 7 to 8 milliseconds, you basically give a thermal shock to the explosive. That is when they go through explosion, the deflagration, and then you put a tiny temperature sensor to actually measure the thermal signature of that explosion, right? That's exactly what the principle is. The rest of it is all implementation. We started building those micro heaters, and we started testing it. I have a small video here. I hope it will actually play. But you know, this actually, you know, gives you. Can you click on that? Or if it doesn't work, I have that pen drive has a small 2-minute. That's good. See whether it will work.
Technologies. NIIT Delhi incubated company and NanoSniff, an IIT Bombay incubated company, jointly manufacture and launch NanoSniffer, an advanced and affordable explosive trace detector, screening visitors and passengers for explosives at various public or crowded spots have become the norm due to the increase in the terrorist activities around the globe. Every luggage and person passing through the security checkpoint is tested by the security officer to check whether they have traces of explosives on their surface, skin or hair. Nano Sniffer proudly claims to be the first explosive trace detector in the world using micro-sensor technology. The micro-sensor of Nano Sniffer is made using micro-electromechanical system, MEMS technology in semiconductor fab. The sensor uses fabrication techniques such as lithography, etching, deposition, spin coating, and finally released to the microsensor. The core technology is protected by patents in the US and Europe. All of our actions leave trace behind, which is then screened by the security personnel. The security has to concentrate at the sampling areas that are likely to be touched by hands. In the case of a bag, this will include handle, buckle, and zipper. Post-sampling, the swipe is inserted into the system where microheater subjects the particles into rapid heating. In case of explosives, this triggers exothermic reactions which are picked up by the integrated temperature sensor of the microheater, thereby landing each compound in its own thermal signature. The algorithms use these signatures to distinguish between explosives and non-explosives. Further analysis of the algorithms help in categorization into the appropriate class of explosives. The follow are few Nano Sniffer features. It is the first microsensor-based ETD. It detects and identifies explosives in less than 10 seconds. Identifies and categorizes explosives into different classes. Can detect ng quantities of explosives traces. It detects all classes of military, conventional and homemade explosives. It is portable and affordable. It gives visible and audible alerts with sunlight readable color display. Nano Sniffer explosives trace detection technology can be deployed at airports, railway stations, ports, malls, metro stations, corporate parks, hotels, and tourist spots. The goal is to intercept and prevent access of explosives trafficking. Nano Sniffer is 100% made in India product.
So this technology is now, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, that's good. So during the COVID time, we actually launched this product. You see the Honorable Minister of Education at that time, all of us in masks and all that. So this is a system that was released for the nation. And then subsequently, a lot of airports bought this, and even Press Trust of India also released a note. And then a dozen airports are now using the technology, including Bombay Airport, Pune Airport, and all of them. So now we are expanding the technology, even exporting it, and a lot of things are happening there. But it's a very simple idea of to do that nano explosion and detect the thermal signature. And so now we hold all the worldwide patents for this and all that. And then the idea is to, because it's a electronic system, we could miniaturize it further, and we want to, at some point put it into buses and trains and other places. But then how do you generate power from these buses and trains? It's an electronic system. So the idea is to generate power from the vibrations. We put piezoelectrics in the sensor, and then those piezoelectrics convert the vibrations into electrical energy. So these are all the interesting concepts, and then we worked on piezoelectrics. We wrote lots of good papers and all that, because we are all in academic institutions. At the end of the day, you have to write papers, right? If you don't write papers, what will your PhD students do? So therefore, you have to continue to write papers, continue to publish, but then you also file patents. And then once you find the right set of students, then you start a company and take those technologies forward. That's how at least I have been working on. So I do write lots of papers, not anymore right now, but during my peak, I used to write lots of papers. And then I started, after I moved to IIT Delhi, I started a project between IIT Delhi and IIT Bombay. That agriculture thing excited me much earlier, but I started the project in IIT Delhi. And then our goal was to develop 4 prototypes, basically to solve the problem of sensing for the soil health card. These are the soil health cards that Government of India has distributed to farmers, where they need to enter multiple micro and macronutrients in the soil. But how do you detect them? So there are no easy ways for the farmer to do that. So we said we will develop sensors for them, and then we set 4 prototypes between Delhi and Bombay. And so we had a large team working, again a multidisciplinary team. I wrote, I worked very closely with chemists both in IIT Bombay and IIT Delhi, and physicists of course. And then we, after some effort, we developed this technology NutriSense in my group, and this is actually a soil glucometer. It can detect NPK, nitrate, phosphate, potassium, electrical conductivity and pH. Now this is commercially available. We launched this as a product in 2019, and we started another company, SoilSense, which has commercialized this technology. SoilSense then started testing it, on the soil and in the villages, and then got it all qualified as a technology with the help of agricultural scientists. For example, Telangana Agricultural University, we had a group here, Balram and others have helped develop this technology further in terms of testing on the field. So we did all of this, and then so SoilSense is now doing very well. They are again they have multiple products in the market for soil moisture to the soil glucometers, and they have done a lot of tests, and they are now the technology providers for all these big companies. They are also exporting their technology now. They have presence in South Africa and other places. And now after I moved to BITS Pilani, I started this organic dosimeter project. Way back in 2013, I had a patent, a US patent granted, method and device for determining ionizing radiation. But then I did not do anything about it. But this is essentially what I am now trying to develop it as a medical dosimeter. Rather for cancer patients, when they go for cancer treatment, the radiation treatment, then the radiation dose and the radiation profile need to be monitored accurately, and that today is an expensive technology. And so we are replacing it by simple flexible patches, right, consisting of organic transistor arrays as a dosimeter. So we have these patents, and I had 2 PhD students who graduated, Sonam Jay and Harshil, working on it, and based on their work and based on this patent, so now I have a project between BITS Pilani and then IIT Delhi, because I still have collaborators in IIT Delhi. So we are developing it into a kind of a product right now. And so this is essentially a replacement for these ion chambers, which is what all the hospitals in the country currently use, and most of them are imported, and they are also expensive. Ours will be a disposable kind of patches for monitoring radiation dose as well as the profile. So we now have a project that has just started, just approved by MIT, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, based on all the work we have done. So this is what I am working right now. And so in summary, most of this work started as a solution to a problem, and then had multidisciplinary teams always. Nothing was done by me alone. I always had my strong collaborators, both in Delhi and Bombay. Now in BITS Pilani, I am developing them. And then we developed these complete prototypes out of multiple PhD student projects. And then we use startups as a way to commercialize them, because I haven't been able to do anything with industry. So that hasn't worked for me, but the startup thing I have figured out now that it can be done. So because with 2 successful startups now with products in the market, I believe I can do this again. So SoilSense is also, like I said, doing well. So I think India is opportunity, but to me that academia startup industry connect is important. So I think this is what we should be doing, and address the bottom of the pyramid. There are lots of unsolved or unmet needs right now in the society. Our R&D in academic institutions, I think, needs to innovate in areas where there is a domestic demand, focus on the full system. I think that is one thing we are not good at doing in our academic institutions. I think we all have figured out that minimum publishable unit, right? Once we get you that minimum publishable unit, publish and move on. I think that's where the project ends. I think having that system focus, is something I believe is very important for some of us now who are, at a certain stage. So, and then local R&D is important, because even that explosive detector, if we had done in the US, would have been hundreds of millions of dollars. But because it's India, right, we don't pay our students well at the end of the day. So I think these are all PhD student projects, right? And these are all, now we are the world's most affordable explosive detector. We are winning all tenders, all bids hands down, right? So therefore we can, that's possible if you do technologies out of Indian institutions. It's possible to do high quality research and yet make it relevant for India's research. All of this work is published, but it's also patented. But by reading papers, you cannot develop any technology. You only, so I think we publish it, but these are all very complicated technologies. So for anyone to master them from publications is not going to happen. And there are again, fortunately, one thing this government has done very well is lot of funding for startups. I think there are multiple government of India schemes for startups. If you have a good idea, if you are looking for funding, you write to me. I know even in BITS Pilani we have a few tens of crores of money available to support startups, right? So therefore, if you have a good problem, if you have a solution to any healthcare kind of a thing, if you have developed a prototype, we will be able to fund you because we have this technology innovation hub by DST. We received 125 crores, so we can fund at least 50 startups out of that money. So all of that is available. So I think funding is not a problem if you reach 3 or 4 level and with a good technology platform. So that's all what I have. This is just the last slide. If India, if it wants to become a developed country, right, what do we need to do? We need to follow this SMILE approach, the SMILE curve. What is the SMILE curve? This is a very strong management theory, which is like a case study, studying hundreds of companies. The management guys, I think, I'm in the management department, so you must be already knowing that. This is known as the SMILE curve. What one is plotting here is the value addition to a company, right? Which companies actually make higher money, higher or lower, versus what is the production chain in the whole development of a product, right? The companies which have the highest value add is in the concept and R&D and in the branding. These are the highest value add. Other highest value adds are sales and the marketing, right? What is the lowest value add? The lowest value add is the manufacturing. The guys who actually make things end up getting 5% of the profit margin. The guys who actually design, conceptualize the product, walk away with all the profits. Which is the best example? Look at Apple, right? Look at any of these companies for that matter, right? All these companies do no manufacturing. They all get manufacturing done in China and Taiwan, right? And Apple's valuation is what? $3.3 trillion. Where does Apple actually get all their products manufactured? In Foxconn, right? Foxconn valuation is about 70 billion US dollars. So Foxconn, which does the manufacturing for Apple, is valued at 70 billion, whereas Apple is valued at 3.3 trillion. All that they did differently was they focused on aspects which get them the highest value addition, whereas left the lower ones to other companies and squeeze them, to an extent where they keep all the markets kind of thing. So that is where we need to. Our Indian companies need to think of product ideas, right? Once you design a prototype, but Apple can do its own prototypes. If you go to the center, you go to the US, sites and all that, they have excellent prototyping facilities. They build their first phone. Right? They have excellent prototyping facilities, make things at the prototype level. The actual manufacturing, they outsource it to these companies like Foxconn and all of that. That's the model for our startups. So we need to think of the product ideas, right? And then able to build prototypes in the country. The rest of the manufacturing, you can go to anyone and get it done. And no wonder all the US companies, right? Top, the highest current market cap, all the most valued companies in the US, the top 7 if you see, except for Saudi Arabia, the oil company, everything else is an American company, right? That's what America is able to do very effectively, in terms of innovation, new age companies. All these companies came in our presence only, right? So we all have seen these companies, come up and grow to these multi-trillion-dollar kind of companies. So I think that's what India needs to do. Our startups need to be, those product definition companies, the product concept kind of companies. I'm sure University of Hyderabad has all of that ecosystem, and much of it is also can happen here. Thank you very much.
Now it's time to pay out the respect to Honorable Speaker. I would like to call Professor B.J. Rao to present our Professor Ramgopal Rao the small memento. Now, I would like to request Professor Lokanand Reddy to deliver his vote of thanks.
So, first and foremost, the speaker today, sir, we thank you profusely from bottom of our hearts for a very, very inspiring speech. I was really wondering about these words: digital smell, nano sniffer, things like that. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and consenting to deliver this lecture. I thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor B.J. Rao Garu. I know today has not gone to his office yet. He has been moving venue to venue. There are some 3-4 programs going on in the campus today. I thank all the senior colleagues and colleagues who are present here for their continuous guidance and support. Thank all the audience for your presence. Thank you, one and all.